Look at these tomatoes. They're going to be delicious. 6 peppers growing on this plant and loads of flowers. They look so good. So in the greenhouse, everything's looking amazing, and we'll give you a proper look round a little bit later. But first we've got some jobs out the back side of the greenhouse. So let's go and have a look at what we need to do out there. Welcome back to a very wintry July in the garden. We've been so busy at work, so we haven't uploaded for a couple of weeks, but we've got plenty of jobs to be getting on with. It's been a very weird summer here. Don't be deceived by this little patch of blue sky. It's the first time we've seen it in about a month, and it's been absolutely pouring all day. So it's about 5 p.m. and this is the first time we've been able to get in the garden. So today's plan is just going to start here. I'm going to harvest everything in this bed and then pull it all out, because we've finally got some things to go in here, because it has been looking a bit bare since we took out all those broccoli. And so these salads I've been harvesting since, I don't even know when I put them in March, just taking the outside leaves off. And now all I'm going to do is harvest what I think we can eat, and the rest is going to go in the compost. They're only small, but it's good enough for a salad. The ones in the greenhouse have gone to seed, so they'll also be coming out, and they are absolutely huge. And to be fair, they've lasted a lot longer than I thought they would, because when we had that spout of hot weather in June, they didn't go to seed straight away, and I was quite surprised. So we've got a good harvest out of them and some massive leaves, so that can go in the compost. This little Lola Rosso. I'm always a bit dubious when I'm washing Lola Rosso. I always think a slug could be hidden in a crevice, and that's why I literally wash every single leaf separately by hand, to avoid accidental slug eating. I'm also clearing this pot here because these lettuces were looking a bit sad, and I think I'm going to put more of these pak choi, which I think you watched me pot on a while ago. I put a couple in here because these ones I planted straight out up here. I've got a black beetle on, but they are looking really nice. So I've harvested the salad that I can, and I'm also going to do the same with the kale, but that's coming out as well to make space for, I don't know what I planted last time. More pak choys. I think that's a cauliflower, some kohlrabis and things like that. So out with the old, in with the new. I don't really want to put it on the dirt, I'll just put it between my knees. So all these baby leaves can either be stir-fried, put in salads. I'm going to avoid the ones that the slugs have munched on. The one thing I've learned about kale this year is the plant is actually a lot bigger than I thought it was, so they need a lot of space. So apparently these ones are quite small for kale. But I went to the shop, and to Danny's delight, I bought some kind of purple variety for the winter, because I thought it would bring a nice bit of colour to the garden. So I'm sure you're going to love that. Right, kale's coming out. Right, so apart from the flowers, this bed and this corner are pretty much empty for all the new things to go in. But I'm going to do a bit more harvesting and getting things in the compost before we start planting up. I know I said we were going to save these spinach seeds, but we didn't realise how long they actually take to flower, go to seed and then dry off. And when you're limited with space like us, it's actually really tricky to justify it when I just bought another 200 pack of seeds for £1. So these saved seeds are going to come out. So we'll have this whole side of the bed and then that bed for new stuff to go in, which I think is a bit more productive when you don't have heaps of space. So sorry spinach, but you're out. You're going to have to make some new copper signs. Spinach one's going to be old. Although it does feel like it's autumn right now because I'm wearing 3 layers. I'm going to leave these flowers, I think they're zinnias. which I planted literally in February. So I don't know if I'm just wasting my time waiting for them or not, but if the slugs eat them instead of vegetables, then I am happy with that. Next thing that's going to go are the last of the peas, which are absolutely covered in powdery mildew, but we'll take our last harvest and then get rid of all these as well. I've had the same problem previously on courgettes and cucumbers, and I'm wondering whether it's something to do with poor ventilation, whether I was meant to thin them out. So what I've done this year is I have done that with my courgettes, which I'll show you just now. Essentially, what I did was take any of the massive older leaves and cut them off. Some of them were absolutely huge, and it looked like there was only maybe less than 8 to 10 leaves on the plant, but actually they grow so fast it doesn't really matter. And we have also propped them up a little bit on a stake to get a bit of better airflow to the plant. Well, I can see this one's still getting a little bit. It's not a big deal, but it might reduce their productivity. So yeah, all I did was pick the big ugly leaves and cut them off, really. I don't know if there's any science to it. Anyone let me know. I did the same with the cucumbers, so I can show you the cucumbers, because last year we let them go absolutely wild, so I'll show you what I've done with those as well. Just noticed 2 courgettes. I thought I only had one, but there's one hiding down here. I'm going to break off this whole other bit. I need to hold on to that. I literally didn't even see this one till now. That's massive. What I've been doing with all my courgettes, because there's been such a lack of pollinators around, is I've actually been hand pollinating them myself. I would show you, but there's no lady plants around at the moment, but I can show you what they look like. So here we've got one of the boys, which is basically the stem and then the flower with the pollen inside. And let's find a girl. Here's a girl, but that's one I pollinated. Here's a little one, can you see down here? So, because these are the big round courgettes, these stems have quite an obvious bulb behind the flower. So you should be able to tell which one's the male or the female. And what I basically do is cut these flowers off, take all the petals off the flower, and rub that pollen-y bit onto the lady bit. It's like courgette porn, but all in the name of food, right? I'm just going to grab that other courgette as well. So to harvest it, as we did last time, instead of cutting, give it a twist and it should come off with a little bit of the stem, but we'll just cut that off when we come to prepare them. So, not bad. We're getting some things from the garden, at least. And as I mentioned before I got distracted by courgettes, with the cucumbers, I've been doing a bit of research on thinning them out, but I've taken a lot of the lower leaves, the older leaves off, which were a bit damaged by cold anyway, but that should improve, again, airflow. And I watched a video about pruning them and taking off suckers, but I need to do a bit more research on that because I'm not too sure which bit's like a sucker and which is not. So if anyone could also let me know in the comments, then that'd be really great. But let's get back to where we started originally with the peas. And now I've lost my scissors. Oh. So if anyone has any tips on growing peas to avoid this mildew, potentially something to do with pruning them or making them a bit less like unruly and bushy, that would be really useful because they're so like chaotic plants and they just grow absolutely wild. It was quite hard to prune them and make sure I wasn't cutting a main stem compared to a branch. But yeah, if anyone's got any tips, that'd be great. This trellis we made was actually been really good for that vertical growing of peas. So I can only assume that would help with the airflow if we managed to control them a bit better. I don't know. all done with peas. And we were just debating whether we actually plant out those new plants that we've got ready, because it's been so rainy and I think it's going to rain all week that they might get just annihilated by slugs. But we're going to go back to our winter gardening method, plant them and then put our 5-litre bottle as cloches over the top. I can't believe I'm saying this in July, but here we are. So we'll plant them out and see if that works. It looks really sad and empty over here at the moment. It sometimes doesn't feel like we've made the best use of the space this year, but we've definitely got some kind of learning points for next year, as in succession planting and choosing the right plants for the right location. But for some reason, on the other side is completely a different story. It's an absolute joke. This is my favourite bit, I think. A little bit of a jungle. So we've got all sorts of things chucked in here. We've got the sunflower one. Where's the other aubergine? I think, oh, maybe everything's a bit too crowded. There's 3 aubergines in here. A volunteer tomato, which is actually massive. And we've kept it, to be honest, because why not? And then all those little flowers that I planted back in a long time ago, which were literally like this big, are now massive. So I don't know. And the marigold seeds that I bought this year are different to the ones I bought last year. So this is literally one plant and it's just a complete bush. Whereas we are more used to the ones down here, which are just a little smaller, but with bigger flowers. So that's just an error on our part that we didn't really know. But yeah, I like this area. It looks like something's growing. So we've got outdoor tomatoes, one of which is doing a little something, the other of which is doing a little nothing, but it's fine. Courgette. And then we've had issues, well, it is an issue with the corn, so we don't think we should be seeing the flowers and the pollen for pollination until they're probably about this tall, to be honest. But from a bit of Googling, it's just because it's been so cold. The plants aren't big enough to be pollinating or flowering at all, but from a quick Google, apparently it's just been too cold, so that's the problem for this. But Google also said, don't worry too much, it shouldn't be a problem, but I don't really see how it's not a problem, because once this has happened, they don't continuously flower, they do it once. So if anyone knows if we should just give up on the corn or just let it grow and see what happens, just let us know. It's a real shame, because last year I grew some corn and it was absolutely massive and pollinated and we got massive cobs, but I didn't know when you were supposed to harvest it, so I left it too long and then it was too hard to eat, so we couldn't even eat it even though it looked amazing. So one day we will get this right. But for now, let's go back down the end to continue prepping the beds. Pak choi have been acclimatising on a daily basis and I've been bringing them in at night to stop them getting eaten. But like I said, I think we're just going to plant them out. But first of all, I need to sort out this bed. I don't know if you want to have a look at this. I think because it was warm for maybe 3 days a long time ago, that is millions of tiny tomato plants, I think. So I'm just going to quickly yoink them out and then we'll kind of make a bit of a plan and see what we can plant where. I feel like we should have saved some of these tomato seeds because they're probably really strong. They're literally popping up everywhere. I've just placed the pak choi where I think they're going to go. If you want small plants, I think you can put them quite close together. And for bigger plants, my app says about 2 to a square. So I've gone for like a zigzag to give them a bit of space, which should be more than enough to get a decent sized plant. Because I'm just taking into account the 2 up here. I'd be happy if they grow to that size, to be honest. So, you know, that enough space, that's perfect. So these are going to go in here in a nice shady spot. If it ever gets warm this summer, they'll be a little bit more protected by from the sun being too hot, prevent them from bolting. Even though these are supposedly the summer breeze variety, so they should be more bolt resistant, but resistant doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So we're going to try and mitigate that as much as possible. So I'm just going to play around with the spacing and then get them in the ground. So a nice strong root system. So from the underneath it looks all right. Let's hope that the slugs don't eat it. So these actually don't need to go that deep by the looks of it. We'll just squish it in. And then hope for the best. So I'm not too worried about any leaves that are down here, because the more important bit seems to be in the bulb, which sticks up and is the good bit to eat. You can see a couple of times where I left them out by accident overnight and they did get eaten. So I'm a little worried, but fingers crossed. I don't know about anyone else if they're having any luck in their garden this year, but I have to say, from my 1 year of experience in growing vegetables, it's been cold, it's been wet, it's been sluggy. No one needs that in their lives. So don't be fooled by the sun right now. This is the first hour's gap we've had in a torrential rain day, and from checking our app on the radar thing, more is coming. So I'm going to ask my trusty cameraman to give me a hand and get everything in the ground as quick as possible, really.
More rain is coming?
Yes.
Where? It's bright blue sky. Anyway, I'll help.
Don't be fooled.
Whilst John is finishing off the... What is that called?
Choi.
Whilst John is finishing off the pak choi, I've prepared this bed with some fresh compost on top.
You're not putting swede or kale, but okay.
And some swede and kale in here. You can tell who's the one that's been busy in the garden, and that's because I've been busy planning how to turn our car into a camper, but more about that later. For now, we start with some cauliflower. That says chili on it.
Collie.
The collie's over there, the border collie.
Oh. That's 1 to square.
Cauliflower is 1 to square, I knew that.
So I'm thinking like that much here or something.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to put it. 1 cauliflower. If you're not sure of what we're referring to when we say 1 to a square, for reference we use the planter app, which basically breaks down your planters or planting area into square feet. So 1 cauliflower into 1 square foot.
Don't bother with that.
Don't bother with that.
BS. Sprout. 1 to a square.
Sprout.
Yeah. It's the only one we've got, so it needs to live. Oh no, it's actually, is this a sprout? I'm going to keep this one in a pot in case the other one dies.
1 to a square.
Yes.
That might be ready for Christmas.
Maybe.
Unless it gets obliterated by snails and slugs tonight.
Someone's showing off their new toy. Get it. That was Danny's contribution for now. So I'm just going to finish planting off these surprisingly healthy looking kohlrabi, which can be apparently 4 to a square. So I'm going to chuck them in whilst Danny goes and does a bit more Googling on how to convert a car into a camper. It's that thing. Every 6 months he comes up with a new obsession, obsesses over it, and then suddenly doesn't want to do it anymore. So hence why I am doing most of the garden now. And guess whose idea it was to start one? It's a proper stuck. I've got some have 2 in a pot and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to separate them. I don't know why this soil is so dry. It's been raining all day. Weird. These little plants have already got a bit of caterpillar damage, which I managed to pick them off and put them into the nasturtiums instead. So at the moment they're going to be having little cloches on them to stop the butterflies laying their eggs until we figure out a way of covering them a little bit better, I guess. So let's chuck the last one in, get the covers on. And then what I'm going to do, we're going to check on those carrots, see how those are doing after I thin them out. And I also need to plant some seeds, which I have started inside, and I'll show you a really easy trick of knowing how you're going to germinate some seeds without wasting any soil. What Danny's just doing now is popping the cloches over the top to stop pests getting to them at the moment while they're still small. Luckily for us, we've got these 5-litre bottles which are perfect for these type of seedlings, because I think a 500ml bottle wouldn't be quite big enough. Some of them have gone really limp.
Yeah.
Why? Especially this one. Come back to life. Okay, new plants are covered, watered and in place. You're cutting the hedge that's gone absolutely rogue.
It's the only thing that's growing in our garden.
Literally. And like I said, I'm just going to have a look at them, see what those carrots are doing, see if they've got any bigger and if we can actually eat them yet. I'm going to take it with me.
What do you think? I reckon these carrots are going to be tiny because there's so many in that tub. They have a nice big foliage. They have nice carrot tops, but
there's a lot going on top.
I reckon there's tiny little carrots in there. So let's see, is it a shower or a grower?
I'm going to go with shower because the green stuff's literally a foot high, and like Danny said, we planted them so close together. I don't know how they got even space to grow. But I'm going to pick just a random one in the middle. Not too bad. I'm going to try another one. This one looks bigger. I can't even get it. Oh, it's the same. I'd say still reasonable enough to eat. And I love carrots and they smell really good. But I'm going to get the cover back on. I'm going to leave them a little bit longer. Although it's a lot harder to get the cover back on when they're so big. But at least one good thing is they haven't been eaten by these carrot root flies. So I can say that's one win, because everything else has eaten everything else. Mainly slugs have eaten all my vegetables. All right, tucked back in. Just a couple of weeks more. And let's see if they're any bigger than this. Okay, now next thing I was going to do was show you how I've germinated some pea seeds without actually putting them in the soil. And some of them have germinated, so I'm going to also plant them today.
Another job on our today's to-do list is to plant some more pea plants, because our original plan to have some pea plants ready to go in the ground once we get the old plants out didn't work quite as well as we thought. From 20 plants that we planted over here in this cells, we only have 3 germinate, with I can see one more coming up very slowly. So today we are planting some more seeds. But what we've actually decided to try is to put them in a Tupperware with some soaked paper towel. And they've been here for 2 or 3 days now. And you can see they've already germinating. So we're going to put these into the soil. And we know these are good seeds that are hopefully going to grow. And we're not planting any bad seeds, like for example these 2 that didn't even germinate. So going forward for future, this method is hopefully going to save us some time and soil. So over here we've got some pots ready with some compost, and I'm just going to select all the good seeds that have germinated. I'm just going to put them in here. Once I've done the peas, I'll pop around to the front and I'll show you all the perennial flowers that we planted a couple of weeks ago. I'm very tempted to bring these inside on the windowsill. As Joanna mentioned, it's unusually cold for the middle of July. Even our tomatoes in the greenhouse, they're growing very slowly and they show no signs of ripening just yet. And with those Marman variety, what I've done is I've left only 4 trusses, so we've got 1, 2, 3 up here and 1 even further up. And I've restricted each truss to only 4 to 5 tomatoes each, and that's with the hope to get bigger fruit. So that's the piece done. Let's go to the front garden and check out on the perennial plants. So here in the front of the house, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we planted some perennial flowers, and that's primarily because we wanted something low maintenance. They've grown quite a bit. I mean, these varieties like doubled in size. They were tiny, so is this one. This was tiny as well. They are growing slowly, and more or less they're all doing great, apart from a few here at the front, which for some reason all of them but one died. And the lavender is doing great. Look at this one here. It's actually flourished quite a bit compared to some over there at the back. That's more shaded. Then the front here, you can see there's some sun actually now in the end of the day, and that's more or less shaded through the entire day. I can't wait for all these flowers to start flowering and see what they actually look like, because if you've seen the video, we've purchased over 100 flowers and I've lost the labels and I mixed them all up and I actually haven't got a clue what they are. So once they start flowering, we're gonna actually be able to see what they look like and potentially identify some of them. But yeah, that's for the perennial flower bed. And in next week's video, we're going to be turning this old girl into a camper. We've got some roof rails. I'm looking into buying a roof box for her. And I've purchased some tinting for the windows. So hopefully if we're camping somewhere, we can have darkened glass and people can sit inside. But that will be for some video in the future. For now, I'm just going to join Joanna in the back and see what she's up to. So we decided the peas is going to stay in the greenhouse because a couple of weeks ago we ended up putting some peas in the raised bed directly. But I've had a little rummage now because nothing germinated and all the peas are missing. So I think that something's actually dug them out, which is looked weird because there were no traces of anything digging out.
Sneaky.
But there were no peas. And the last job for today would be just to move that basil from the seed trays to down here in this corner, and we're going to have it all together clumped up like a basil bush.
That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed coming along with us and you enjoyed the video. And for next time's video, we might be doing something a little bit different. As if you scroll a little bit further back in our channel, you'll see that we converted a caddy camper and went on some adventures with it. So now we're going to be trying to do that with our car. So maybe watch us convert it and maybe some future adventures. See you next time.